Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the May session of the Janome Club, brought to you by Janome Australia. I am Kathy, and I'm one of the educators at Janome, and I work out of the Brisbane office. And today we are going to be talking all things free motion quilting. So I'm sewing on the Skyline S6 today. It is part of our premium Skyline series. There are 4 models in this series. The S3, which has got a 7mm stitch. You've got the S6, which is what I'm sewing on today, and that has the AccuFeed Flex. The S7 has got a lot of our premium sewing features, including the automatic foot lift. And then the S9 has also got an embroidery unit as well. So it's sewing and embroidery. So all of these models have got an 8.3-inch or 210mm throat. So it's a perfect size for sewing, dressmaking, and quilting. So we're going to move over here, and I'm going to take you through some of the different free motion feet that we have at Janome, and also some of the accessories that you would need for your free motion quilting. So the first foot I'll start with is what we call our Pdh foot, and it is a pogo foot, so it does bounce up and down as you sew. This one is available on pretty much every machine that Janome do. We have a Pdh foot. It may be a high shank or a low shank, depending on your model. And information about all of these feet and getting the correct foot for your model can be done from our Janome Stockist. So you can go to janome.com.au and search for your Stockist to find your local store. And if you take in your model number, they can then advise you which is the best foot or which feet are available for free motion quilting on your model. So that's our Pdh foot. It bounces up and down, and I'll be showing you that one in a sec. Then we have a range of feet, which we call our floating feet. So all of these will hover above your work and create the stitches. Depending on what model you have, either you have this style, which is height adjustable by the little screw on the side, or you have this style, which uses the standard shank off your machine and the feet clip onto the bottom. And these are all available in open toe and closed toe varieties, all of the free motion feet. And depending on what model you've got, also some of them have got ZigZag or our variable ZigZag feet as well. The other things that you would want for free motion quilting is if your machine does have a straight stitch needle plate for it, that is a good one to put on for your free motion quilting. And what that is because you're going to be using the single needle holes, you will have less needle flex and less fabric flex, and therefore you'll get less skip stitches. The other thing we have is our blue dot bobbin case. So you can see there is a little tiny blue check mark on here. So this particular bobbin case is set at a lower tension than our standard sewing machine bobbin cases. And that is just so you can correct some tension issues that you may have when you're free motion quilting. And again, there is various different ones of this depending on what model machine you have. So if you require either the needle plate or a foot or the bobbin case, you can just go into your local store and they can fit you up with the correct ones for your model. So a little bit of a talk about tension. Now, last month we talked a bit about embroidery tension. So this is going to show you just some free motion quilting tension. So it works the same way. We want to get a nice balanced stitch. We want, normally when we're quilting, we want a balanced stitch where the stitches are being formed inside your quilt wadding. So that, and this obviously here, I've got a, this one I've had a loose bobbin in, and you can see here that this is pretty much my balanced stitch. But if you start getting feathers on the top of your work, as you can see down here, these are caused by generally that the thread has not been threaded properly in on your bobbin. So do check that your bobbin thread has gone through your tension little disc on the, so the little tension spring on your bobbin case that you've threaded that properly. So that should combat any of these sort of issues on the top of your work. If we go here where our top thread looks perfect, but when we turn it over, and this is probably the most common thing you will get with free motion quilting, is where you've got eyelashes on the back of the work. So there are two main causes for this. One is that your bobbin thread is too tight, and that's where we recommend the blue dot bobbin case. The other thing, especially if you're getting these really long loops, so the pink thread is my top thread, these really long loops, is that generally is that your top thread might not be threaded properly or has come out of the tension discs. So please look at the manual for your machine to see whether you need to lock it or have the foot up or whatever the settings are that are required for you to thread the machine properly. And that either, so a mixture of either the thread being threaded properly or the blue dot bobbin case will then allow you to have a balanced stitch. And you can also see here, this bottom one is reasonably balanced, not quite, but if you have a look at these two compared, this one is all sort of scrunched up together. So that means both my bobbin thread is tight on the top and the bottom. So, and it will pull your work in too much. So what you want to have is a nice balanced stitch. And I think the one on here that is right is probably about this one here for this particular machine that I sewed these on. So you want to, I always make a little sample to test my bobbin, my thread, and the actual wadding I've got, and do a little sample just to make sure everything's balanced. So that is what you will need to do the free motion quilting, is all of that. So we're going to go over now to the machine, and we're going to set it up for free motion quilting. So depending on what model you have, you may need to go into your sewing applications, which is the little T-shirt button, or on your machine like the Skyline S6. All I have to do is drop my feed dog. So on the side of my machine, I have a lever for my feed dogs. And you'll notice on the screen, are we on this one? I'm just checking we're on the right camera. You'll notice on my screen when my feed dogs are up, I have a stitch length. So I have my width and my length here. So I have a length. Sorry, I'm on a straight stitch, so that's needle position. When I drop my feed dogs, you will find that my stitch length will now go to 0. So that means the feed dogs aren't going to be making a stitch at all. Depending on your model, you may also get an image up here of the Pdh foot. So you may get an image of this foot on your machine, just depends on what model you've got. And that way you know that you're ready for free motion quilting on this particular machine. So first of all, I'm going to show you the pogo foot, the Pdh, which goes up and down. And I'll show you when this is good. So I'll do a little sample here and I'll show you. So I've put it on to where my regular shank goes, and the little bar that's on this little bar that's at the top goes over the top of your needle bar. So the little, where the screw is, that screws in and holds your needle, that goes over the top. So as you sew with this one, so my machine is telling me I've got my feed dogs down, that's why it beeped. So I can now start to sew. And my little thread tail out of the way. So as I start to sew, you'll notice that the foot is going up and down. And with free motion quilting, you are the one who is controlling the fabric moving. So you can see here I've got my extension table on my machine. So that gives me a nice, we're going to zoom out a little bit. So I do have an extension table. It does give you a nice flat area to be able to maneuver your quilt around. And as I sew, you'll see that little foot going up and down. Now the goal of free motion quilting is to get a perfect stitch to the speed that you're going. It doesn't matter whether you are fast or slow. You want to try and find your speed. So everybody has their own speed that they will sew at. So I could sew fast Oh, I put so slow. So as I'm sewing slow, I'm moving my quilt slowly. If I start to sew fast, I'm going to move my quilt faster. Push. Got my threads. So one of the places where this pogo foot is really good is when you're working with different heights of details in your quilt. So you may, this one here, I've got the little prairie points. So this pogo foot will bounce up around these. Or you might have an embroidery, or I have trapuntoed these, which has made them really puffy. I've put extra wadding in there. So you can see I've got quite a bit of difference between the lower piece of fabric and the higher piece. So this could be an embroidery design. It could be lots of seams, anything like that. So this foot will just bounce all over those. Then we're going to change to our floating foot, and I can show you that. So depending on what sort of free motion quilting you're doing, there's different soles that go on our free motion floating feet. You've got your open toe and closed toe options. So this is a closed toe, and this one is an open toe for different models. And then you've also got feet like this one, which is your Echo Guide. This one has got guidelines around the foot, so it allows me to stitch parallel lines around a work. So I'll just get out some examples and show you. Move all my little pieces away there. So our latest accessory of the month is this little pouch. Where are we here? 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 I don't have a cat. I can't see what I'm doing today. I've got no video, anything. It's all just. You're doing well. So this is our accessory of the month from our latest accessory of the month, which is this zipper pouch, which is all done with free motion quilting. And I have utilized the convertible free motion foot, which is this one, and the 3 different feet that it comes with. It comes with a closed toe, an open toe, and the Echo. So you can see here, I've fused some fabric and put it down into the shapes. So that's just using either your Heat and Bond, your Vlisafix. There's various different other products out there, but you want a lightweight, double-sided fusible. And we've got our shapes that we cut out and then fused onto our fabric. Then I have used the closed toe foot, and I have stitched around the edge of the fabric and some detail. And then this is where this Echo foot comes into its own. So as I'm stitching with this, and you'll see where the crosshairs meet is where my needle drop position is. So as I stitch around here, I lined up the edge of the butterfly around here, and I just kept that first line lined up with the edge of my butterfly, and I stitched around that shape, and that gives you that really even spaced echo. And I did 2 lines on this one. So I'm going to put that foot on now to show you. Is that PBS? Yes. Making sure I've got the right one. I've got so many variations of feet here. I have to make sure I've got the right one for this model. Now, with the any sort of floating feet, you need to set the height unless you've got a machine with the automatic foot lift. So if you've got the Skyline S7 or S9 or a 9450 Memory Craft 15,000, the Continental CM7, all of those have the automatic foot lift, and that will automatically censor how heavy your wadding is and how high it should be. So with this foot, I've got a very thin wadding here. My foot is up. If I put my foot down, my foot is actually quite tight. So I'm quite tight here. I'm not going to be able to free motion quilt right there. So I have to adjust this little screw on the side. And what you want is you don't want it too high. If this is too high here, you're going to get a lot of fabric. fabric bouncing up and down as you sew, and that's going to give you skip stitches. So we want to have it so it just skims the top of the work, but you've got free movement. It's not getting caught anywhere. That looks pretty good for that height. So I'm going to now echo, actually I might draw a little flower in here and then I'm going to echo around. So I'm going to use my needle up and down button to pull up my threads. Get my tiny little tail here. I'm going to pull them both up above the foot. So I'm holding onto both my threads here. That way, it's not going to get sucked down into the back of the quilt and cause a knot. I'm going to hold on to it. And I'm just going to stitch a couple of stitches on the point, like on the one spot. And then I'm ready to sew. And I'll cut these threads off once I've sewn a little bit. So I'm going to sew like the middle of a flower. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to cut off those tails so they don't get in the way. And you could, if you were practicing or just starting out, you could stitch, you could draw a design. There's lots of designs on the internet that you could download and then trace onto your work, or you could stitch over. I'm just getting a little tiny bit of flex, so I'm just going to drop my foot down a little bit. Once I've got my little shape here, I'm going to now stitch out. And I have stopped. I don't know how close we are on this. I'll move to the other side, and then that way you should be able to see where I'm lining up. So I'm lining up. My needle is here. I've got this first red line on the foot, and I'm lining that up with one of these petals. So these petals coming around, and then I'm stitching that 1/4 inch apart. So as I move around this flower, as long as I keep that red line lined up with the petals, I will get a nice echo around my shape. So that's where that'd be similar something to this here. So this is in the pattern, you get this flower. So you can see here I've done the double row of echo around there. So I'll show you a couple of other designs that you can do with your free motion quilting. Just depends on, some people have their favorite things they go to. Some people, as I said, you can trace out designs. You can look in magazines, on YouTube. There's lots of different videos about how to create particular designs. This one is cream on cream, but generally with a bit of shadow with our lighting, you should be able to see this. We're in the middle of this one. Yep. So this is some pebbles, and I will pull over here so you can actually see a little bit better. Here is some pebbles that I've done with a contrast thread. Then another one, let's get another sample here. Oh, here's some more pebbles. So this one here, what I did is with my walking foot first is I stitched these swathes of lines over my fabric. And then I've come in and done the pebbles in sort of like the center section of these swathes. And that creates a really nice effect. So you might have stripy fabric or fabric with flowers on it. You can then free motion quilt into those shapes. And that always makes a nice space rather than having to quilt over the top of a whole thing. You've got your shapes here. And you can see you want that balanced tension. I don't know if you can quite see it on this one. I can turn this one over. You can see. So my stitches are forming nicely on the front. And then when I turn over, they're forming nicely on the back. I don't have any of that feathering happening there. Here is another one, which is like I know it's a little meander that I've added a little triangle sort of angled part. So I'm going to bring down here a stipple or meander. So this is a quilt that we embroidered these big butterflies on it. And then we have done the free motion quilting around the outside. So again, we'll see the thread on the back and then the thread on the top. And this one we've just gone around the shapes. Then we've got, this is a more free-form sort of design that I've done where it's some cherry blossoms on some bark. And I've actually utilised a function called variable ZigZag, which is where you can actually do zigzag stitch with your free motion quilting. And you can create these really organic lines where you've got different widths of zigzag. So anyone who's an art quilter out there, this feature is available on the Skyline S7 and 9. And then also our bigger Horizon platforms. CM. Yeah, so Memory Craft 15,000, Continental CM7, 9450. So that's that. And then here's another sample. This one, I actually used a ruler first. So our ruler foot is a free motion foot. It does float above your work, and then there's plastic templates that you stitch around. So here we've stitched a little clamshell, and then I've come in with a separate little swirl and done that one. And I've got some more ruler work. This one is a bit of a quilting sample that I've got. On here, we have ruler work, which is your free motion quilting around the, I don't know where camera is. I'll stop moving the quilt, Peter.
Okay. You're up the top where you can.
So we have used the rulers around the outside. So I've got my little clamshells here. And then in the center section, I've used a mixture of all different quilting stitches. We've got some free motion quilting, and then again, this grey thread on the red background is that variable zigzag. And there's also some walking feet in there as well. So I'm going to show you now, there's my piece of fabric that I was sewing on. I've thrown it away with all my other samples. There it is. So I'm going to show you now, I'm going to swap my foot over to the little closed toe one. Get it off. Little closed toe. I like these little foot. So depending on your model, your free motion foot may be plastic or metal. They all work the same way. You just make sure you always have the right one for your model. Now with this, I'm going to show you a feather. So a feather is this style here. I don't know if you can see. Yep. So this is a feather here where there's a spine, and then you have the leaves shape or the paisley sort of shapes over either side. So with this, what you want to do is you want to start with a line, and you may chalk it in. Sometimes I just use my fingernail and I'll like mark in a line. You may want to actually chalk it in with pencil. You also, if you want to practice this, you can print them out and on a piece of paper, and then transfer those markings onto your work. So I'm going to put my foot down and my needle down, and I've got both of my threads again, and I'm going to come up one side first. So I'm working in this sort of curly sort of, it's a paisley type shape, so it's flat at one end and pointy at the other. And I'm going to just work up one side of my spine. I'm sort of eyeballing my little spine thing that I have here. Now these can have extra sort of bits. You can do little bits inside, do curls. And when we get to the top, we're going to do a little peek around. And then either you can work back down the other side, or what I like to do is I prefer to come in and do my spine stitch, because I do find it easier working from one direction and working back up. So then we're going to copy similar. So you can see here, this foot is just skimming above the top of my work. I might even just drop that down a tiny little bit. I'm going to do one of these double. Now with free motion quilting, it is a skill like anything else. You do need to practice it, and when you start, your work may not necessarily be as good as somebody else's. I have been free motion quilting for a very long time, so it is a favourite of mine. There is, wherever we put it here. So here we have the feathers that I've just done, and this one here with the extra double. So there's so many different designs that you can do. I've got one more sample here, which I'll get Peter to come up. This one is, again, another embroidery design that we did. And then I free motion quilted around this. Whereabouts is our camera? Right here somewhere. So I've got leaves on here. We've got pebbles. We've got feathers. We've got concentric circles sort of going round. There's all different sorts of wonderful. There's little, like, more leaf shapes with little zigzags in them. There's really, the designs are unlimited that you can do with your free motion quilting. It is really just a matter of having a play and think of it like drawing. And if you want to practice the designs, what you can do is, I'll just put this back down there. What you can do is you could get a pencil and you could actually draw the shape. So keep your pencil down onto a piece of paper and then draw around, and that will give you the design to practice, and then you can move to your sewing machine. So I hope today, I don't know what time we are, I don't know how we're going with that. So I hope today has been a little bit informative for you. Please feel free to contact, I don't know which camera are we on now?
Go to what?
I don't know here. Please feel free to go to janome.com.au, and you can search for your local store. So if you want to purchase anything to do with free motion quilting, it might be an extension table, it might be the foot. A lot of our machines do come with that Pdh foot, so it might be one that you haven't used before. You can find it in your little accessories. We've also got lots of projects on our website, and there's also lots of different videos on our Janome Australia YouTube channel. And for those that may have missed some of our previous club days, all of our previous ones have been uploaded to our Janome Australia YouTube channel. So you can go there and rewatch videos or find other inspiration on different things that we have done. Now, our next session is on the third Thursday in June. So it is the 17th of June. And I really hope to see you there. And thank you very much for joining us today at the Janome Club for Janome Australia.